All right, guys, how we doing? Sam here with you. It's Friday. It's the 18th of January, so we're going to look at Bitcoin, of course. Now, I'm trying to just simplify a bit here. We've been through this so many times here. I'm just working from this pivot here. What was that? Do I call it 10 grand? Rounding a little bit here. I've got a 4-hour on Bitfinex. Can I finish in 5? Could I be finished down here? Boy, it is very hard to get a count that has this finishing. It really. So even just drawing it up here, so we 1, 2, looks like 3, 4. How are we going to finish that? It's going to be hard to do this without, at the very least, a test of these lows. And so if, again, trying to make it simplify as much as possible. If that's a 1, 2, I follow it with another 1, 2. So if we think about that, what's happening with the subdivision, 1, 2. Best thing we can argue here is that we've completed the 3 of the 3 here. That's about most optimistic way you can look at that. I don't think we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. But this looks much more like that's part of the subdivision of the 3rd to get you down here. So this, it's right. So anything's possible, right? This could be our ultimate low, but it's very hard to see how, from an Elliott perspective, this is going to resolve without at least testing that low. So 1, 2, 3. Now, if so I know you can't see that here, but let's just dig into that here. So, just to back up here. So I've got the modified shift median lines here. You can see how this. Yeah, we've gotten through it here. We got to the 0.75 here, but the median line seems to be, there's some influence here as we're clustering down here. So let's go down to an hourly and dig into this subdivision here. So this continues to be the difficult area here where we have this problem resolving down here. So we remain suspect of that low. We can all agree, I think, that there's a clear impulsive move off of this low. This was a very long-term algo target that would hit it damn near to the tick. Then we get a nice big 5 impulsive structure going up. So, of course, the obvious question, what do we got, an A or a 1? Well, boy, it is hard to, as optimistic as I am long-term, it's hard to see this, how we would finish the whole thing down here. It's very hard to see it. It's just back and forth as many times as I can look at it here. It's just I don't see a way for us to get done down here, again, as I said, without testing that low. Now, if we hold here, maybe we come back and we reconsider the entire count. But as we sit here right now, so it's either a 1 or an A, B, C. It's either a 2 or a B. So even if so there may be an opportunity here if we get something like this. If we get a move up here. Of course, given the broader bearish context here, if this is just an A and a B going in, we'd be looking for 5 to go up to finish the C. So if you pull back out and give it some context as to where that could be going, well, let's just do like the most rudimentary thing. So length of the A. Now we don't have the B, right? So I'm going to use the algo target and the median line just as a projection. Well, here would be 100%, right? Very common. So yeah, sure. I mean, that could be it. That could be it. Here you've got some structure, so that these median lines seem to be in play down here. So certainly if we came down and we pivot on the median line, and that triggers ideally an impulsive move here. Or it could be a diagonal. So just a motive wave. We need a motive coming off of that. Boy, it is hard to see that as anything other than the A, B, and the C. All right, so here would be, right, so we can pull this off actually, because that's no longer really in play here. So now it's just a question of, can we go A, B, go up here for the C? Well, if we do, what is that, right? So this would be the more bullish alternate. I'll keep that off for a second. And if we come down here and we get a 4 here, well, so you'd have A, B, C for the 4 right at the parallel. Does that work? Well, yeah, sure, it does work. But what does it set up, right? Just one more. Right? How do we avoid this? So even if we stay with these median lines here, we're violating this low, puts us down here 2,500, 2,200. There's some long-term fib projections that are that low, so it's hard not to. Right, so there's potentially this is an opportunity here to catch that, right? So you wouldn't be out of sync here. You wouldn't. you know, if you prefer the buy side in crypto as I do, that's not an unreasonable trade, but you've got to be realistic about how far that can go. Before you, at the very least, you're going to run into some resistance. Now, if we can do this as A, B, C, we get the 4, we push down for the 5. Well, then maybe there's a stronger case for a substantial low here. But you know, you look at the broader count, there's still very real possibility that's just the 3. You still with a 4 and a 5 yet to come. Now, you know, now we're looking ugly. Now we're down here at 1,200, 1,000. Right, but if you pull back out, right, let's try. Can I do it? Let me see. The 3 hour, right? You sort of put that together and say, well, would that make sense here? So, right. So we're here in yellow. If this is a 1, 2, 3, so let's think about that. So working from the 2 high. If right now I'm purely hypothetical here. If we pivot down here, I'm just at the median line. Right? So I'm just using it as a potential guide as to where we could be going. Well, if we're going to come back up, we're looking for the 4 of the larger degree here. Here's 38. But could we go to the 50? Sure. Or you have all the structure there. Maybe we finish with a, you know, the diagonal. It's just no way to know right now. It's just boy, is it hard to see how we're getting out of this without one more push down. Now maybe we can rework the count and come up with something better so that this. We've you've seen so many different counts on this because it's so hard to know where we are here. So if this were to be, perhaps this were an A, B, and we were finishing with a C, there is a way we could get this to finish down here. But from this pivot here, very hard to see how we finish without another drive down to, at the very least, test that low. You just don't see how we do it. Would love to be wrong. I would love to be wildly wrong, but I couldn't give you competent counsel to suggest that we're going to just put the low in and we're off we go. Would love to see it. I just think it's improbable, right? So of course, as I like to remind you, anything's possible, of course, right? But what's most probable? Right, so even though this looks like, hey, we had a nice impulsive move, it's way too soon to call that as anything other than most probably an A wave. But again, that doesn't mean that there's not money to be made down here, that there's not an opportunity on the long side. Now we got to let this thing finish. So let's go back down to that hourly and see where we are here. So it certainly looks like we're in the process of working through a triangle. So whether it's 1, 2, or A, B, we got to finish this in 5. So, you know, again, we don't have to go down there, right? It's not a foregone conclusion that we're doing that, but you would certainly say the most probable path would be for this to come down and finish that. Right? So, so we got the median line guiding us. We've got an algo target here. So I'm pulling from the 2 through the 3. We go to the 38 to the tick. Right, some prior structure. We got a low volume node. Market rejects it. Now we go into a little sideways. Looks very much like a triangle. So hard to see say it this way: path of least resistance would appear to be one more down. So we'd finish here and we'd get 5. Now again, right? So that potentially is just the B. So if you're coming out of that B, and we're going up to that C, well, there's plenty of shit. What do we got there from 3,400, even the 100 here to get 100% the length of the A, that's 4,600. So there's opportunity there, but I just don't think we've made the hard pivot and we're now coming out of the bear mode and we're going bullish. So now there's a couple of just kind of curious things in here that it's hard not to, right? As a technician, you're always looking for what am I missing? This is kind of interesting. So note here, if I take this corner and I just work through this proposed triangle, look how nicely that's holding the market. So you don't necessarily have to think of it as a channel, but that's interesting, right? So am I right on there? I mean, you're literally right on the trend channel. So what does that tell you? So if that breaks, that would be certainly an indication, a confirmation that this little triangle has completed. So if it's A, B, C, D, E, and then we come down, right? You'd know where you were in the count. Let's say it that way. So this, right now, it's support. If it breaks, then, right, so you'd anticipate we're going to come down in 5. What's very common with a break of a trend line like that, if we're going to come down, we'd come back up and test it, and then we come down, finish something like that. So look for that. There's likely opportunity here. Now that's those of you that are comfortable on the short side. But is there a lot there? Well, the other thing you can do, we could take this is I did this earlier in the week here. So we look at the length of I'm going to use the high here, right? So we've got the 2618 right in that same spot. So you've got a nice confluence zone down here. Now, of course, we're well beyond the 65, so we don't have a buy side algo working with us. All right, so we'd be down here approaching the 887. We'd be through the 786 if we're going to get the 261 in the median line. Right? If this is going to be realized, this is not an unreasonable target. We'd stay above this pivot, so we'd stay with an internal retracement, and it sure does set up nicely for a move out of here. It would be nice to get a buy-side algo right behind us. Right? So if this comes up and we get the retrace, then we got a 50 here, then we can get something. But that, again, most likely we're just going up to get the C wave. I don't know what else I can add there here. So it's... Right, the other possibility here is that, shit, this is all wrong, and this could just keep going. Nothing says just because we hit a median line right here that we can't just go right down and go after that low. Right, could happen this weekend. But if you were just mapping it out, right, this would be a reasonable target. Anticipate a reaction. Now that's a very long term. Right, now we're really using some structure that's got a lot of history behind it. So if we just, of course, there's going to be a different set of median lines here. So let's go back to original. You know, so we're still in terms here. Just to clear it up here, I'll take this one off, since we know where that lines up down here. Now we look at these. You know, I always kind of experiment with, is there something else here I might be missing here? Right now that looks, as we stay within this, now that would suggest much lower prices, right? If we're going to use this, we're going to stay with that here. If we use this as our pivot, now we're coming, look, right down to the low. Well, I guess we can't get there. Pardon me, pay attention here. We can't get there because of the angle, so let me get that over here. So we'd have to go to a modifier because we're too far. Jesus, what do I want to do here? I want to do that, and I want to go, let's try the shift too much. So you'd have to be back to modified shift, which is essentially a channel. So that gets us, well, that's kind of interesting. So look at that potential confluence here. So this would give us our lower parallel at that same zone where we'd be intersecting the lower parallel here. So let's go back, put that back together. That's kind of interesting. Right? So if we get that here, that's some nice confluence. Can I get it back here? Yeah, here we go. So from that high to that low, get right on that pivot. See, I've got, no, I wanted modified shift. God damn it, sorry. Let's get modified shift on that. Okay, so now we go down here and we look at this. I'm not zeroing in on those, but so we get this little confluence zone down here. So, right, we're past this. So we put it right here on the corner. So all of this starts to look kind of juicy. Right, lower parallel, median line. It fits with what we're seeing here. We finish the triangle, down we go. So let's call that between 3,400 and 3,480. You know, you've got about an $80 range there that you'd be targeting here. And again, the idea is not necessarily to be a buyer trying to nail the low. Let's see if we get a reaction there. If we do, well, here's a couple of logical places. Here's the median line. Right, so wait for the pullback and then try and get that. All right, so we know clearly where you're wrong. Stop on the other side of the pivot on the assumption that we get a pivot here, right? Which is, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but that's a reasonable spot to be looking for it, not necessarily to go balls deep and start buying heavily there. But it's a place to be paying attention. So at the very least, I'd have an alert there so you know if you come down here, what does it look like? So it's never easy in Bitcoin, never. Right now, right, this trend line here, let's think of it as a trend line. So far, that's holding. Right, we break that, likely we go down. We finish this 5. All right, that's about as much as I can offer. Shit, I don't even know if you can see that there. That's getting tougher. All right, guys, pay attention down here. Right, 34.70 looks interesting. All right, guys, talk to you.